In 2012, a man in Brazil sat alone in front of a camera and said something that, at the time, sounded insane. He said the dollar was finished. He said the future of money belonged to a strange piece of internet code most people had never heard of. A code with no government, no bank, no boss. Bitcoin. At that moment, one Bitcoin was worth around $12. Nobody important was listening. No newspapers, no economists, no politicians. A few years later, his prediction made him a legend. A few years after that, he vanished. This is the story of Daniel Fraga, the Brazilian who saw the future of money and paid the price for saying it out loud. To understand Fraga, you have to understand the country he was speaking from. Brazil in 2010 was a place built on noise, loud politicians, loud inflation history, a loud, slow, expensive state. People paid some of the highest taxes in the developing world, and in return, they got potholes, broken hospitals, and corruption scandals on national television almost every single week. The internet, for most Brazilians, was still new. YouTube was a place for music videos and pranks. The financial system was a closed club. To send money, you needed a bank. To save money, you trusted the same government that had frozen people's savings only 20 years earlier. Into this world walked a young man with a webcam. His name was Daniel Fraga. He started his YouTube channel in 2010. His first videos were almost boring. Just clips of broken streets, missing road signs, garbage piling up on sidewalks in his city. He was not selling anything. He was not famous. He was just pointing a camera at the gap between what the state promised and what the state delivered. But underneath that simple act, there was an idea forming. A dangerous one. Fraga was a libertarian. More than that, he was an anarcho-capitalist. If that sounds extreme, here is what it really meant. He believed individuals own themselves. He believed property is sacred. He believed that taxation, regulation, and most of what the modern state does is, at the deepest level, a polite form of force. To Fraga, the government was not a parent. It was not even a referee. It was, in his own words, something closer to a mafia. Wearing a suit. Carrying a stamp. This belief shaped everything. If the state could not be trusted with your speech, why would you trust it with your money? And money, to Fraga, was the trick at the center of the whole machine. Think about it. Governments print currency. When they print too much, your savings shrink. Banks decide who can send money, who can receive it, who can be cut off. The rules can change overnight. The numbers in your account are not really yours. They are a permission slip. Fraga saw this clearly, years before most people did. So when, in some quiet corner of the early internet, a system appeared that solved exactly this problem, he recognized it instantly. A currency with no central bank, no CEO, no country, no off switch. For most of the world, Bitcoin in 2011 looked like a toy for hackers. For Daniel Fraga, it looked like a key. In 2012, he posted a video on his channel that would later become historic. Roughly translated, the title said, "Bitcoin is better than the dollar." In that video, and the ones that followed, he laid out an argument that sounded crazy then and obvious now. He said Bitcoin was scarce, while the dollar was infinite at the press of a button. He said Bitcoin could not be frozen, censored, or seized as easily as a bank account. He said it crossed borders without asking permission. He said it was, finally, a kind of money the state could not control. He was not the inventor. He was not Satoshi. He was not a Silicon Valley insider. He was a guy in Brazil with a webcam, telling his small audience to pay attention to something they had never heard of. And the timing of that signal is what makes the story sharp. Bitcoin at the time of his early posts traded for a few dollars per coin. Within a decade, it would cross 60,000. The exact number matters less than the shape of the curve. He was not warning people after the move. He was warning them before. What he got right was not just the price. It was the meaning. He understood that Bitcoin was not a tech product. It was a political statement made of math. That is when the trouble started. Fraga did not just talk about freedom. He used Bitcoin to live it. When a journalist was punished by Brazilian courts for criticizing a politician, Fraga went on camera and openly mocked the same politician. He dared her to sue him. She did. He was hit with lawsuits, fines, demands to take his videos down. At one point, a judge ordered him to remove content under a penalty that climbed by tens of thousands of reais per day. His response was almost funny in its boldness. He told his audience to download his videos and re-upload them everywhere, so the censors could never catch up. He launched a contest. The prize was 1 Bitcoin, given to whoever made the best video criticizing the politician suing him. He told the courts they could not seize what they could not find. His wealth, he said, was not in a bank. It was in Bitcoin. In 2014, when officers came to his door to deliver a court summons, he filmed the entire thing. He refused to accept the paper. On camera, he called the system a state mafia, working to intimidate peaceful people. Then he uploaded it. For a while, this made him a kind of folk hero, the libertarian who would not bow. But the pressure kept building. And then, in 2017, Daniel Fraga simply disappeared. No farewell video, no final post, no explanation. The channel went quiet. The man went silent. Friends and former followers said only that he was alive, that he was somewhere, that he was fine. Beyond that, nothing. This is the part where the story stops being history and becomes myth. Around the gap he left, a legend grew. People started saying he had become a Bitcoin billionaire, that he had moved his entire net worth into the coin in the early days, when it cost almost nothing, and watched it explode. Some of this is plausible. He spoke openly, for years, about converting his savings into Bitcoin. The exact size of his holdings, though, has never been publicly verified. The billionaire label is a story the internet tells itself. It is not a confirmed fact. What is confirmed is the influence. Fraga was, by most accounts, the first person on Brazilian YouTube to seriously talk about Bitcoin. He was one of the first in the Portuguese-speaking world to push libertarian and anarcho-capitalist ideas into a mass online audience. A whole generation of Brazilian crypto users, libertarians, and skeptics of the state can trace some line, however thin, back to those early videos. He became the kind of figure the internet specializes in producing. Half remembered, half invented. A face on a thumbnail. A ghost in the comments of any video about Bitcoin in Brazil. The myth is bigger than the man now. And maybe that is exactly what he wanted. Look closely at his story and a quiet pattern appears. Daniel Fraga did not predict Bitcoin because he was a financial genius. He predicted it because he had already stopped believing in the thing Bitcoin was designed to replace. When you no longer trust the state to protect your speech, your savings, or your future, a currency that needs none of those things is not strange. It is obvious. That is the real lesson hiding under the legend. Vision is rarely about seeing further than other people. It is about being willing to look at what they refuse to see. A man with a webcam looked at a broken system and then looked at a piece of code and understood that one was already dying and the other was quietly being born. He said it out loud. He paid for saying it. And then he stepped off the stage, leaving only the prediction behind. The world he warned about is still here. The money he believed in is still spreading. And somewhere, presumably, Daniel Fraga is still watching. Quietly, from the outside. Exactly where he always wanted to be.